Ho, 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 ho! Tomahawk. I've got nothing. Bone tomahawk.
My dog Spock is in a cone tomahawk.
Wonderful, topical, on point. Welcome to I Like to Movie Video Edition.
Yes.
My name is Dan Scully.
My video edition name is Garrett Smith. I'm just doing vaguely white guy ninja moves.
That's right. We've decided now, because this is a visual medium and we still do the same thing as we do on our audio podcast, to invoke more visual entertainment by doing Vogue moves, Paris is Burning style, with our hands as we do that. Which, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Highly recommend.
I have not, actually. And you just told me a name for a thing that I do all the time. Apparently these are like Vogue moves when you do things like that.
You got a Vogue.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. Paris is Burning is fantastic.
Oh,
it's
I probably
all
like
about the what's the word? We'll call it the drag underground in gay New York in the 80s and 90s.
This sounds right up my alley.
It like opened my eyes to the idea that like not all drag is a gender bending thing.
Right.
Because a lot of them do business realness drag. And so you have this guy who's very flamboyant, but he's dressed in super fash business. But they still Vogue and do all that. But it goes through, like some stories of like some legends in the scene. It's fantastic. And it's one of those like, you can revisit it pretty regularly and be like, you know what? That's something that is either mainstreaming now or I'd never considered a certain way. It's fantastic.
Dude,
that's that's a 5-star doc. Paris is Burning. Highly recommend.
Oh, it's a documentary too.
It's a documentary, yeah. It's
that's interesting.
Like I know the show Pose is sort of adjacent to it because it is about like the ball scene, but no, this is a documentary. This is like cameras in these places, at a time where living on the fringe was more dangerous, for people who are living an alternative sexual lifestyle or fashion lifestyle. Man, it is. Put it this way: it's a documentary that came out around the same time as the movie Cruising came out.
Right.
So
for some reason, I was already thinking that as you were talking. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, so it's like a documentary Cruising.
Well, it shows the other side of that, whereas Cruising is just like, oh, you're living in the underground. What a sordid, hateful place by necessity.
Right,
and this is like, no, there's actually this like beautiful, just wonderful area of love that these unloved people found and created their own family.
That's cool.
But the world at large does still have that cruising attitude.
Yeah.
You know, to say like it's highly recommend. I think you'd love it. I would be willing to bet money that Tori's seen it.
Okay.
I feel like if you asked her about it, she'll certainly be familiar with it.
Yeah. Dude, dig this segue. I've been watching like a lot of the Australian New Wave movies that are on the Criterion Channel right now. And
I want to watch more because I'm a big Wake and Fright guy, and I did watch The Plumber.
We could totally talk The Plumber, but I was gonna say, like, I watched this movie Starstruck, which is directed by hold on, I can't remember her name. Gillian Armstrong, and so she did, I think, the '90s Little Women as well. But this is like a new wave musical. It reminded me of Sing Street. But
I still haven't seen that. Yeah.
Okay, but like Sing Street is like nostalgic for new wave, you know what I mean? But this movie is from 1982. So it's in it. Yeah. It's in it, and it's like it's super fun. It's just like it's got this great protagonist who's like this really bubbly, like probably college age girl who just like wants to be a singer, and she's got a great voice, and she like lives above the bar that her family owns with like her cousin who's like a couple years younger than her, and he like writes all her songs, right? So he's like the producer that's always tailing along with her. It's just got this really fun energy. It's all new wave music and stuff. But the reason what you were saying reminded me of it is that it's one of those musicals where like, it's like she wants to be in a band, right? She wants to be like a rock and roll singer. So like they do break out into song, but it's always kind of like under the guise of like, oh, we're playing a show. Like there's usually sort
like
of
a musical, but not a musical.
Yeah, but it does that
like
thing
the Miami Connection.
Yeah, but dude, it does that thing where like even when they are at a bar and they are a band that are on a stage performing for an audience, all of the audience and the bartenders all know the same choreography, and they're doing it in sync with the musicians. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those movies, and I fucking loved it. It's super fun. It's just like, it's great. I really highly recommend it. I feel like it's like a lost musical. I've never heard anybody talk about it.
This is on Criterion now?
Yeah.
Because I added that channel to my watch list. I watched The Plumber just because, like I said, I was crazy busy this week.
Yeah.
And both of our biggest group texts, presumably your biggest group texts, were alive. And so I just, at the end of the day, when I could finally get to my phone again, I was like, man, I like, it's a lot. And so The Plumber was one thing that rose out of that. And that had me add that. I hope that it stays on Criterion for a while, because I want to go through as many as I can.
Yeah.
Just because the Australian New Wave stuff is like, I think Wake and Fright predates it, because that's like late 70s.
Okay.
But like, just think about, I've never been to Australia, but what we know about it, in the 1970s, there was some wild shit going down there. And so to have these like, we all know Mad Max came out of it.
Right.
But like, the same way that like, High Tension came out of the French New Wave kind of thing. But like, there's always stuff that elevates above that, like Awake and Fright.
Yeah.
Or like, things like, well, I just kind of want to rally this towards The Plumber.
I know. I've watched like 6 of the movies on there now, and most of the ones I watched were Peter Weir's movies.
Right on.
I watched...
The Plumber is the only Peter Weir movie I've ever seen.
That's wild. You've never seen Truman Show either?
Oh, wait, I forgot. To tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever sat down and watched it front to back. That's another one of those movies.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, because I have definitely seen Truman Show, but I also like... in my mind, I'm like, have I ever... I saw it on VHS. You know what I mean? Like, did I ever actually watch that movie start to finish, or did I just like catch it at people's houses for like 20-minute increments,
I'll say that I have seen The Truman Show.
Yeah.
But I have probably never watched The Truman Show.
I
forgot that was him. But yeah, I don't think I've seen any, but I've certainly not seen many. And I'd love to see more. I know he's... Oh, wait, you know what? Another one that I know I've seen but not watched is Witness.
Yeah, same. I've also seen Witness, but I have like no memory of Witness other than like, that was boring. Mostly because I think but like mostly because
you were a kid,
Yeah, I watched it at a time where I was like, how come Han Solo's not shooting any of these Amish people? Like,
you tell me there's no blasters in this movie?
Yeah. What the so like I am very excited to sort of revisit a few of those that I think I've seen and just don't have a good distinct memory of, because dude, I did the same thing. I watched it's called The Cars That Ate Paris.
Oh, I've heard of that. I want to watch that.
It's fucking great. You would love it. It's like it's like a Mad Max adjacent movie. Like apparently,
like death race shit.
Yeah, and like apparently, like Mad Max is one of those movies that just like a bunch of other Australians made sort of like Mad Max adjacent movies after that. You know what I mean? It's like one of those exploitation movies that kind of like spawned its own kind of mini genre for a couple of years. And I think that's what this is. That's what it feels like. That it's like it's kind of in the wake of that movie, but it's fucking awesome. It's a really good exploitation movie. It's got one of the guys
also on Criterion.
Also on Criterion.
Okay, cool.
It's got one of the guys that's in Mad Max in it. You know who else is in it and is in a couple of these movies? The guy that plays Napoleon in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
No way!
Yep, he's in a bunch of these old Australian movies.
I hate to say it, but I love him. Yes. Like, I don't know anything about him, but he's great in Bill and Ted.
Dude, he pops up.
Oh, that's fucking hilarious.
He pops up in this movie, and I'm going like, this guy looks really familiar. Like, why do I recognize this guy? Especially because, if I remember right, the Napoleon performance is like mostly a what do you call that? It's a non-vocal performance mostly, isn't it? Isn't he like mostly just doing like gestures and stuff?
He's the closest thing that movie has to slapstick.
Yeah, he's like a mime
in a small scale sense, because there's a lot of whoa, but like no like weird quirks like he would have been right at home in Reanimator.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he's just going like he's got the thing.
Yeah, he's in a couple of these movies. Anyway, dude, you could watch any of the movies that I could say right now, and I think you would like all of them. They've all been like good. I
plan to watch many
movies.
Of them.
But because I went on this Peter Weir, I watched like everything they had Peter Weir. I watched The Last Wave, which is great. I guess it's a big inspiration on Take Shelter.
Okay, cool.
Which
cool.
I actually have not seen.
That's one of the great robbed of an Oscar movies. Like everybody talks like, and I don't know what he would have been up against, so I can't speak to it on that level. But in terms of like performances that deserved love, Michael Shannon in that movie is like just I mean, through the fucking roof, brilliant.
That's a Jeff Nichols movie, right?
That's a Jeff Nichols movie.
Yeah.
Jessica Chastain's in it. It's like
cool.
stacked with talent. But yeah, he gives a manic, crazy eyes the way only Michael Shannon can town hall speech where he's going off about things. And it is like the kind of shit that turns your stomach. It's awesome. But anyway, go ahead.
I would like to see it. Well, all I was gonna say
love it, dude. It's fucking awesome.
I've been taking in these weird. I've been loving these Peter Weir movies. Like everyone I've watched, I've been like, wow, this is like really good. And The Plumber is like a TV movie that he made. I believe.
Yeah, I guess it has that feel.
And have you ever seen Carpenter's TV movie? Someone's Watching You or Someone's Watching Me?
No, that's one of my few Carpenter holes.
It's pretty good. It's really worth watching because it's like it kind of feels like a sequel to Halloween in some way. It's basically a slasher that takes place in an apartment building.
Okay.
And so as I was watching The Plumber, it was all I could think about. I was like, this is so similar to Carpenter's TV movie. It is like a slasher that takes place in an apartment building. But what I loved so much about The Plumber was that it just has like slasher movie vibes.
Yeah.
Isn't one? Do you know what I mean?
He's very much a foreboding villain that's always around, whose presence always evokes fear, who's framed in a way that always makes sure we know he is bigger.
Yes.
And I think the music cues speak to that.
Yeah.
I think just placing him in a shower
Yeah.
and being able to Dutch angle the hell out of that is very, very, very much hard. I mean, I would say that this movie is a horror movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a slasher, but it's got strong slasher directing style and vibes for sure.
Yeah,
but this is undoubtedly a horror movie.
Totally, because you said something in your review that didn't even fully occur to me when I watched it, which is so weird. I think maybe just being a man, I didn't even think about it as much, but just the general fear of when you just let somebody into your house because they're a repairman or, they need to be there for some reason, but you don't really have any prior connection to them other than just like, oh yeah, they're here to fix my toilet. You know what I mean? Like,
one of the scariest things that has ever happened in my life was one time a repair guy was sent up into the apartment where I currently sit. And whereas we have always and continue to always have really, really, really good relationship with our landlord, I can't laud him enough. This is one time where I think our landlord's inclination to give people the benefit of the doubt, which is good for us as tenants, led him to bring on a kind of really, really shady employee. Yeah. And the guy was very polite, but it was scary as hell. Yeah. And it became doubly scary after he left because I was pretty firm in don't go in there. Yeah. Don't do that, blah, blah, blah. He didn't fucking listen.
Yeah, yeah.
I was pretty firm. And when he left, I was like, shit, I should have been much firmer. And I was still in some way trying to be nice.
Yeah.
And it was the kind of thing where it's like, no, man, this is your home. Your foot has to come down.
Yeah.
And it sat with me for months after that where I was like, that was a time where I should have been absolutely on the defensive.
Yeah.
But since this happened, I am always very, very wary when a repairman comes in.
Yeah.
But even before this happened, there is still that just fear of, this is a stranger that I am letting in. And now that the door is open, the next line of defense is this torso right here. And that's just a scary thing. Yeah. And so this movie really, really tapped into that fear.
Yeah.
And so I was able to relate to it, despite the fact that being a smaller woman whose husband is just not willing to hear what's going on makes the threat even scarier in that level, where I can't necessarily relate to that in terms of like, this is my home and I have to protect it. Tim McAllister. That I could relate to a lot. And since that's probably the most scared I've ever been in my actual life, this was one of those movies that I loved every minute of it, but I watched it with just like a pit in my stomach. Like, it was really upsetting. So thumbs way up.
I had I had such a wild ride with this movie because the other thing is that, like, I guess maybe not to overspoil the movie or anything, but I think ultimately, the movie is kind of doing this interesting, like, what would you call it? Like a tennis match with itself, where like, it kind of switches back and forth who the villain of the movie ultimately is a couple of times, I think. And I think
it motivates those shifts though well enough that you don't go like, ooh, you know, like it's.
Oh no, I agree with you. I think this is a good thing about the movie is I think the movie is like trying to address the class difference at the heart of the movie.
Certainly, yeah.
And
you're just a repairman. Like that's like a big thing they always lean on. Yeah.
And I think the final moments of the movie are meant to sort of put a final twist on who really is the villain of the story.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I think it takes care of the micro villain and then highlights the macro villain.
Yes, that's a great way to say it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's something that we always contend with our villains now. Now that we, you know, where it's like, you know, okay, this guy's a bad dude, but why is he like this? You know, like and so this is kind of asking that never ending. I mean, you know, if I can put my my small amount of angry politics hat on us, is I think that our a lot of our issues could be fixed if we really thought about things in terms of class.
Yes.
And the fact that this is something that, I mean, even in what year was this movie?
This is
71.
Yeah, it's early. Hold on, I'll find the year for you while you talk.
Yeah, well, and it's just like that. It's like, wow, that's just a universal, forever concern.
79. It's the end of that decade.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, either way, it's like, but that's like a universal concern is class. You know, you watch something like this that's experimenting with that, and then we watch, you know, Parasite gets Best Picture last year because the entire world resonates with the idea of like, oh, capitalism's not being the best to us right now.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's very interesting to see that still in there. But I think that is very much in the interests of the movie, is making us root for this lady, but also showing how much of a, you know, how much of a pawn / contributor to the system she is too.
And like, you know, the movie does this thing where you know, you don't need to forgive him for any of this to still kind of like see her as somewhat of a villain by the end, right? Like, because he is like fucking with her. Like he's very intentionally fucking with this lady.
I mean, the thing he did to their bathroom construction-wise is truly the stuff of nightmares.
It's insane.
Also, this is also one of the funniest movies I have ever seen.
Dude, when he comes in through the fucking ceiling.
Yeah, you didn't answer the door, so I came in the other way. The other way being the hole in our ceiling that you put there, that you cut into the...
It's fucking insane.
But no, I do think you're right, because when she does finally call him, like, you're a repairman, you can tell that breaks her a little bit, because she's clearly having that moment of, I always thought that I was better than this whole class distinction thing, because they are very clearly well off. They're educated people. I think they're both, you know, in the scholastic sense somewhere, you know, they're...
I believe he would be a professor / researcher, where she may currently be like a grad student. Or
she does talk about how she's writing her like grad thesis or whatever it's called. But and so like, I think she always thought of herself the same way, you know, that a lot of us think of ourselves as like, oh, I am so forward thinking and so good. But when the chips were down and her back was against the wall, she did ultimately lean on class distinction to place herself above this certain thing and to motivate something that needed to be done, but I don't think she could find a way to do it that felt human until she took that moment of like, I'm going to make you a little less human for a second. It's really effective stuff. Man, I love this movie.
I thought it was so good. And like, by the way, this is like, so like, if you have the time and you've got the channel, like watch the other Peter Weir stuff they have. Because like, I loved this movie, and if I had to rank the Peter Weir stuff that I watched on there, it's at the bottom of that list.
Ooh, that bodes well, because I was really into this. And also, I believe it's like 70 minutes long, something like that.
It's like,
which is one of the best runtimes.
It's also, dude, the fucking whatever that like very generic like American 70s rock song that he's listening to every time he drives up is the greatest. I love it. Do you know what it is?
I Shazammed it a couple times, and I forget whether it was one that was Shazamable or not Shazamable. And I do this a lot, so
yes, please
give me one second.
Take a moment, because I am very curious. I would love to know if it's an actual song that I could dig up. Because every time, like the first time it happened, I was like, this is cheesy and funny. And by the end of the movie, I was like, I love this song. This is my favorite song. I've never heard a better song.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to reverse engineer. I'm going to look at the date that I watched The Plumber.
Do it.
On Letterboxd. Boom, boom, boom. So that was the 17th. So it was on the 17th.
This is science, baby.
I have absolutely no Shazams on the 17th.
It's all right.
Wait a minute. Did I really watch that on the 17th? The 17th was
your
Sunday.
Your records may be questionable.
Nah, no, I'm good. It was the 17th. Yeah, I guess it just wasn't Shazamable.
Probably.
I tend to leave. You can leave Shazam on.
Yeah.
And if a movie starts to have like a really good soundtrack, I will often just put it on and leave my phone next to the speaker.
Whoa.
And then you come back, and I have it set to make a playlist on my Spotify of all my Shazammed songs. That kind of happened automatically. But so anything I Shazam goes on it, and then I can curate from the playlist what I want to keep.
It's really cool.
Really a lot of fun. But no, I don't know what that song was, but it was very much AC/DC / like Airborne or any of those guys.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie in particular, like a lot. Was
the actual plumber anybody? Because he was fucking amazing.
He was really good. Hold on, let's take a look. The plumber, the cast. That's got to be Ivar Kantz.
Ivar Kantz.
And he's got some credits here.
Yeah, that's definitely him. Oh, he's a badass looking older dude too.
Yeah, he is.
This guy wanted me to give him the answers, and I was tied to a chair or something. He'd get all the answers. I'm terrified.
He was in a movie called Escape from Jupiter.
Ooh. Wait. Okay, it's not the one that in that list of Australian New Wave that I wanted to watch the most was Money Movers.
Oh, I watched that.
Is it cool? It looks awesome, but I just haven't had a chance to watch that yet. But there's imagery from it that I'm familiar with.
It is really cool. It is a movie that
I'm familiar with that guy.
Yes, yeah.
I've seen that image so much.
I definitely think you would dig it. Maybe the thing I would compare it most to, and it will make you excited, is like taking a Pelham 123. It's got that kind of just like you're dropped in immediately and you're just off and running with this sort of like ticking clock situation of crime, and you're sort of like learning the details as you go. I thought it was a little what's the way to say this? I guarantee it's a movie that I will give like 5 stars the third time I see it.
Yeah.
But the first time seeing it, I had trouble understanding all of the mechanics at play. It was a little bit hard to like follow all the pieces.
Yeah. I can see that.
But it does come together at the end. You know what I mean? Like you kind of feel lost for a little while.
Sometimes a heist movie can get like unwieldy.
Yeah, it felt a little unwieldy, but it comes together in the end and has an awesome ending that is like really worth watching the movie for, and like was so good that I was like, okay, so I will watch this again. And watching it again, I'll have a better understanding of everything, and it'll probably be more fun. You know what I mean?
I have to get better at liking reviews on Letterboxd. I never think to do it. I read the review and then I either comment or don't.
Yeah.
And I never think about it because that's like as an indicator of I have read your review.
Yes, yeah.
I pretty much read everything. And so one of the things that was in your review about Money Movers was about a guy having to perform while cuffed or tied up or something.
Oh, yes, there's a guy that like
that sold me immediately.
He gets handcuffed, like he's handcuffed behind the back, and then he has to like escape, and he's in like I don't know what you would call it, but like a Los Angeles villa, like a house on a hillside kind of place, And so like with his hands cuffed behind his back, he like has to like high kick a bunch of guys and like wrestle his way like through a living room, and then like literally jumps out a window like with his hands cuffed behind his back onto like a lawn, and then like has to fight more. I don't know. It's like it's just a cool,
that sounds awesome.
It's a really awesome. It feels like something out of Point Break. It's just like a really good, well filmed and choreographed, like very physical fight scene where I was like,
Rubber Mask and Gun also screams Point Break, so I'm sure it's an influence.
Probably, but also it's one of those things where I'm like, how have I never seen this in a movie before? It was like one of those things where I was like, I can't think of this imagery anywhere else, and it's so simple and effective. It's like it's really cool.
Did you see this movie that came out earlier this year called Run?
No, but I've been hearing good things about that.
It's good. It's the same director who did Searching.
Oh, okay.
Which I really, really liked.
Yeah.
This one isn't as good as Searching. It's a very sharp movie. The problem with it is it hinges upon the exact reveal that you know it to be immediately. As soon as it starts, you're like, I know exactly what this is, and it is exactly that. And it doesn't make any pains about that kind of a thing. But it's really suspenseful and really well done. And in it, the lead actress, she's in a wheelchair. She doesn't have the use of her legs.
Yeah.
And she has to get out her window, climb over the garage into the window of another room in her house without the use of her legs. And there's like a good ticking time kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
And it is one of the most intense sequences of recent memory. Cool. I think you would really like it. It's just a solid like line drive of a movie done well. Sarah Polly's in it. Is it not Sarah Polly? What the hell is her name? Sarah Paulson, that's it. And she's in it. Great. The lead girl, I don't know her name, but she's great. And it's one of those just like real solid thrillers of, it's like you're watching Disturbia, where you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Nailed it. Good work. But that scene in particular is like, I've never, like, what a concept.
Yeah.
Girl who can't use her legs has to climb on her roof into another, like, that's really cool. And it's done well and physically, very well done.
I mean, that brought to mind another movie that I would describe as just a good, like, tight little thriller like that, but has a similar scene that is so effective and fun. Mike Flanagan's Hush.
Hush is great.
Where she has to, a blind woman has to, is she
she's
deaf? She's deaf. Where she's out on her roof and he's like, she's basically trying to like climb out of the way of him and hide from him. But you are aware that like he's more aware of her than she is of him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
crawling
out on the roof.
She has no gauge for what it means to not make a sound.
Yeah.
And like can't quite nail that.
And it's got that great. For some reason that roof sequence is what I remember from that movie.
And that's sorry, you have spit on your face because I got real enthused and it landed right in the center of your face. There we go.
Dude, I also rewatched The Informant this week because I really wanted
when
to show
you said that,
Tori.
I really need to rewatch that because I think that's probably my favorite Soderbergh outside of Haywire.
Yeah.
I think it's without a doubt my favorite Damon, but I've only seen it twice. But when I close my eyes, all I can remember specifically is him looking at the spilled treats and the ants hitting their and like shit is hitting the fan for him at this point, if I remember correctly. But he's just so like, man, what a score. Look at those ants. They probably love this. And that is brilliant because I don't know. I saw like some shades of my thought processes represented.
Dude, the way that so this was, I think, only my second time seeing it. And so it was my first time watching it, sort of knowing the full breadth of like what's really going on.
Yeah.
Because the movie does a great job of kind of like withholding a lot of information as it goes along,
Yeah.
Like being entertaining, but kind of keeping you at a distance a little bit from like exactly what's happening for like a lot of the runtime.
I like that it almost tries to make us on the same level as him where we only know what he knows.
Yes.
But it doesn't tell us what he actually knows.
Yes.
And that's why he's kind of like perfect to do his role.
Yes.
Is because he doesn't even know like what he knows. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah.
I know it's like it's a little, but watching it a second time, knowing all of it, it's like really funny. And like
that movie's funny as hell.
And like just very interesting because like literally like within the first 5 minutes of the movie, some of the stuff that he's saying in voiceover is already inconsistent.
Yeah,
like he'll say something and then like a couple minutes later he'll say a similar thing, but like now one of the figures has changed a little bit, like, and you don't notice it the first time you're watching it because it's these small little like insignificant details and then the thing where he just always is voiceovering, right? Like he's always self-monologuing, and the first time you watch it you don't even realize that like he is self-monologuing like through important conversations that he should be listening to. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's funny too that like my internal monologue to myself is it's often more surreal than just me talking as if there's an audience.
Yes.
And it's so weird that he's giving audience to himself.
Yeah.
But it also like, of course his brain works like that.
Yes.
Why wouldn't it? Of course it does.
And it is a great performance. Like, I think Damon is awesome in it. He's I mean, it's one of those things where I think I have heard some people like make fun of him for being like maybe a bit of a tryhard when it comes to like doing comedic stuff in movies.
It's just that he looks so earnest.
Yeah, and I could maybe understand that, but I think in this movie in particular, like, he clearly has a comic sensibility. I mean, that performance requires a comic sensibility that he definitely has. You know what I mean?
Have you seen? I think it's Ocean's 13.
I don't know if I saw that one. I'm not sure.
There's a subplot where they hook up Linus, his character, with he has to woo somebody. It's oh no, I'm gonna forget her name. Whatever. But he's got to woo her, but he's also got to be in disguise. And so Linus's character is very much a quiet, reserved, like he's very uptight. As the second one, the very underrated second one, if I must say so, that he like carries with his family and stuff. That's the fun thing about them, is that they're very stiff upper lip. That's like what Bennett was talking about, how he's impossible to do an impression of. That's also his strength, is that there's just nothing to hook onto. But I believe it's Ocean's 13, he has to woo this other character that he doesn't want to woo, and he has to do it wearing this ridiculous fake nose. And it's the kind of thing that any actor with any sort of sense of comedy would play bigger than Damon does. But Damon's sense is so refined and not gaudy that he plays it to the driest perfection that I don't think anyone else could do.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. Like, a goofy nose and you've got to be a sexy guy when your character isn't. That is the biggest invitation written in fucking highlighter to go big and be goofy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, and it's infinitely funnier as a result.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is what comes through in The Informant, is like, Matt Damon's fully aware of how ridiculous this guy is, but this guy is fully unaware of how ridiculous he is. And like, you got to wear both of those in the right amount.
Well, and like the other thing that I love about this movie is that it's like this kind of like interesting exercise in casting, where like almost everyone in the movie is a stand-up comedian.
Oh yeah, Tom Papa rolls through.
Yes, dude. Like, almost. I mean, a young Paul F. Tompkins is in this movie. A young Andy Daly is in this movie.
Yep.
Like, there's like a ton of people that pop up throughout this movie that are all comedians. And
completely CGI. What's his name? Bill Hicks rolls.
Yeah. But like, the thing that I like about that though is that the movie is very much a comedy that never plays to its comedy. Mm-hmm. And I like the exercise of casting comedians because I think they are actually kind of uniquely qualified to not play the comedy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, to mine the comedy without actually having to play to the comedy. Does that make sense?
I think that it's one of those things that you and I were both funny guys. We're both comedians. I think we have the ability to walk into a room and just kind of be like, I can make something in here funny. Yeah. You know, I can do that. And I think that that's the smart thing about casting comedians, is that they're gonna find the funny almost through nature, as opposed to looking at the bit and figuring out what the bit is.
Yeah.
At least until, you know, like, of course you do that as a comedian. You work your bits, but like the instinct that you know, like, anybody can be funny if they write hard enough, but few people have that inherent instinct. And I think that more often than not, comedians, specifically ones that are big enough to be in movies, do have that instinct, just a candle burning that they've always got going. And that translates well where they can find the funny without being the funny guy.
You know what? The other thing that movie is so... I think about this with Soderbergh movies in particular all the time. People talk about his editing a lot. Which I understand.
Out of Sight is the best edited movie I have ever seen in my life, hands down.
But you know what's so strange about it is that, like, this is going to sound weird because it's going to sound like I'm almost like insulting it, but I mean all of this very complimentary. Like, Soderbergh's movies don't scream any kind of particular style to me. There's
really only the Ocean's movies, but that's because he's doing
yeah, and you know, certainly Traffic has like very pointed kind of like visual cues and stuff. But like, you know, The Informant is a great example of what I mean. And I even think Out of Sight is like, there are visual things I like about those movies, but there's nothing about it that is like, you know, Fincher had that very sort of abrasive Fight Club style. You know, there's nothing like that. There's no stamp of like the Soderbergh movie in my mind, you know,
he's
in the
just
same way
fucking good at it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like,
it just is
good editing is editing that you either good editing is editing that you don't notice. If you notice the editing, that's probably more the directing because of the shot choice.
Right.
Good editing you never think about.
It's remarkable. It's the weirdest. The reason I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say is that what I'm saying is that it's so unremarkable, it's remarkable. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I'm so impressed by it every time I watch it. But the thing that blew my mind was we're watching it, and I'm having that thought. I'm going like, man, this is incredible. Like, this is really high caliber cinema, and I can't explain why. Like, that's like the Soderbergh thing to me, is that it's like it's really high caliber cinema, but I don't have any of the, I don't know, big sweeping earmarks that I can normally call out when I'm actually saying that about another filmmaker, you know?
It's like, I know that like everyone always says like Nolan's style is no style.
Right.
But like there's no denying that his craft is really solid. It's getting a little wonky on the sound, but you know, hey, gotta live your life. Let him do what he's gonna do. But like Soderbergh is almost, and I say this only in terms of like the world he came out of, he feels like the indie version of that. And you know, now he came out of the, you know, Spike Mike, Slackers and Dykes era of people. You know, he had the Sex Lies and Videotape and all that. But it's you're right. He's definitely a guy who, you know, his movies, but like I couldn't tell you what his thing is.
Yeah, and like the thing. So I'm watching this movie. I'm thinking about like, wow, the editing is so good. But like, what I'm not thinking about is Tori points out to me later. She's like, yeah, the thing that's great about the editing in the movie is that like, as the character is monologuing, you are drifting into other scenes visually, and you don't even always realize it. And so like he's able to. The movie is basically a constant montage, and that allows him to like tell a bunch of story without having to actually like talk about a bunch of story.
And it also feels like that's how he lives too. Like he's in on this, and the world happens around him. But like this is the trip he's on, is his head.
And then Tori
how's that for visual listeners?
And then Tori pointed out, she was like, there are scenes where he's just like sitting in a car in a parking lot of a motel on the phone with somebody, and we never know why he's doing that. Like, there's no explanation for why this character would be in that place. Like and so it's like
that's really funny.
It by the end of the movie, she was like, by the end of the movie, we find out that like, oh, he's been making all kinds of like backhanded deals like throughout this process that we didn't actually really get to see. We only saw like pieces of. And Tori was like, we see all these pieces of it throughout, and we're not even thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like
we're just like who's this weird guy?
Yeah, they're just like we're like he's sitting in a parking lot, and we're not thinking about like that's where he is. And then later you're like, oh, he was probably outside of like some deal that he made. You know what I mean? Like money was probably exchanged 5 minutes prior. He wasn't doing nothing. Yeah.
It forces us to live life like him, though, too, where like shit's just happening around you, and you just gotta. I really gotta watch that again. I believe
really fun.
Schizopolis is currently on Criterion.
It is, and I am gonna watch it like probably this week.
Please watch it, because that movie it's very dated in terms of like the way it finds itself funny. Like you watch it, it's just very much a movie from the 90s. I'm like, when are the presidents of the United States of America gonna come out and play Possum Kingdom by Toadies and then have a Zima? Like it's all just like that kind of thing. You turn it off because Step by Step's on. But like it's certainly one of the best windows into Soderbergh as a stylish filmmaker, because it is written and directed by him. It is very much like an avant-garde, all over the place kind of thing, but it also stars him.
Right, yes.
And so he gets to kind of be like to give you the movie, and it's I don't know if it's like great, but it's very weird. It's very, very funny, and it's extremely dry. And if I could draw a straight line between this and any of his other movies, it is most certainly The Informant.
That's interesting. I'm going to watch that soon, partially because I want to see it now, because I just read that he is working on like a big collector's box set of his work. And part of what's going to be in it is his own George Lucasing of a couple of his early movies.
Totally into that.
Apparently he's like re-editing Schizopolis in some way for it. And I think maybe one or two of his other movies. So I want to watch Schizopolis now in like its current form, so that I can have like some good context for that when that comes out. You know what I mean?
Well, if you missed it, I do have the Criterion, so you can dive in. there's one like he plays a dentist in it, but like there's smart choices. Like there's this one because it's in segments, and there's one segment that is this guy and his wife, and Steven Soderbergh cast his own actual ex-wife to play, or at least ex-fiance or something, to play her, because the whole idea is that they're distant. And what's funny is their interactions, you know exactly what they're saying, but all of the dialogue is completely gibberish.
Whoa.
It's just complete gibberish, but you get what's going on, and you just see how they're going through the motions, and there's like a disconnect. But like, there's so many weird, like there's a scene where he's having a conversation with his coworker, and his coworker's talking about how, you know, like he's not attracted to his wife anymore, and I forget the guy's name, but he's an actor that you know who's in every Soderbergh movie. But it's the reverse of the regular conversation, because he's like talking about, he's like, you know, when I married her, she was like real big. But like she just keeps getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, and the guy's like, yeah, and he's like, and they always, you know, they say, look at the mother, her mother, huge. I didn't look at the mother, I looked at the father. You know, like it's like it's the same like shitty office conversation, but they switch it into he's concerned that his wife is losing weight. There's all these weird things like that are just like very dryly delivered, very weird. But when you tune into it, man, it is fucking funny as hell.
I'm very excited to watch that.
It's pretty weird.
Dude, the only other thing I wanted to bring up on my half of this was Birth, because I know that you have some. We talked a little bit about Birth. And I really like Jonathan Glazer. You got me into him. I think I saw Sexy Beast maybe before we watched Under the Skin, I think. But Under the Skin was really like the one that I was like, oh my God, this is like really incredible. And then I have watched Sexy Beast again since and think that is an incredible movie. And so I finally watched Birth this week. And boy, is Birth a weird fucking movie.
Weird movie.
That is Kidman's a weird fucking movie.
Kidman's great. Yeah. Man Kid is great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's a crazy movie, because like the first time I saw it, I had to like, and it's been years since I've seen it. Yeah. It's like kind of one where I went into it going, I want to know the why of this.
Right.
I want to know whether this really is her husband, whether this really, and then like, you know, it becomes pretty clear about halfway through that that's not even really the concern of the movie. Right. And as we talked about in the text, it's also an investigation into like the reaction of the people around her, and how this all is, and how that relates to, once again, class. But when I realized that like this movie is not about the why of it, it's just about the it of it. And that's really phenomenal. Like I love a movie that's just like, here's all the pieces. And then you go, but what does it all mean? It's like, doesn't matter. Just play with the pieces and come to something. And like, I love that.
I know
and it's a very bold experiment in that.
The movie is like almost, not quite, but almost as detached from its own story as like the characters are. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about how the characters have this kind of like almost detached approach to this like very strange situation. They do not think this is as weird as they should. You know what I mean? Like they definitely think it's weird, but they should all be reacting not necessarily stronger, but certainly they should have more concern.
They should be more engaged with it.
Yes.
It's weird because it almost has that like, you know how like, oh man, this is good. I'm gonna make a broad sweeping generalization based on class, but here we go. You know how like sometimes super rich people are like real into psychics?
Yes.
But like, and that's not a judgment call. There's a lot of fun to be had there. But like, there is sort of a like, oh, that's Nicole Kidman. She loves that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just part of it. She's a bored housewife. This is just one of those crazy things. Let it burn out.
Yeah.
And like that sort of flavor is there. And I don't think directly, but like there is sort of that sort of dismissiveness to it, which I think is somewhat what the movie is about. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I probably watched it last 3-4 years ago.
Dude, yeah. I mean, like the thing that I was trying to say in our text was that like I don't know what it's about. Like I really don't. But the thing that I like about it is that I definitely know it's not about what it's about. You know what I mean? Like the weird plot is really weird, but that's not what it's about. You know?
Yeah, it's a method to get. I think it's just a method to get us to think about like, you know what. It reminds me a lot of, have you seen Personal Shopper?
I have not yet, and I would like to. Assayas, is that guy's
Assayas,
name?
yeah, Olivier Assayas, and great filmmaker. Oh, that's another one. I gotta knock Irma Vep off my list. That's on Criterion right now. But he like that's a movie. I wouldn't say that they're at all similar stylistically.
Yeah.
But they are very much about how grief can almost manifest in supernatural ways.
Yeah.
It just even in the real world where there's no evidence of supernaturalia, grief can really lean you into magical thinking. And so then once again that that would call most movies to ask like, okay, so is this really supernatural or not?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that Birth's response is to, why do you care? What matters here is the grief reaction. But I mean, grief is one of 1,000 things that's about. But Personal Shopper is very much about like, where do you find that intangible connection to a very real thing that doesn't exist anymore? And it taps into that same fear a little bit for me, I'd say.
Yeah, the thing that I couldn't stop thinking about weirdly was Eyes Wide Shut. And I don't even know what I mean by that, but both movies feel to me like they
look
are
the same
a little bit, and they have this kind of I feel like they have an opinion of the upper class that is similar, or they're trying to be incisive about the upper class in a similar way. But I don't even know what I mean by that exactly. It felt like
it's trying to be clinical about it.
Yeah,
it's very easy to make a movie that's angry at rich people.
Yeah.
That doesn't take subtlety,
right?
But to hit that with subtlety and to try and think deeper than just money corrupts you, and try to think of it in a more human sense, I think is perhaps the goal.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's so. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a very interesting movie. It's probably my least favorite of Glazer's movies. It's like sad that there's only 3 of them to really talk about. I know he's made some shorts, but
it also feels like his most mainstream.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
Actually, you know what? That brings up something interesting. I think the reason it feels most mainstream is because that's probably the only one that you can pitch.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Like if you pitch me Sexy Beast and go, oh yeah, it's about a guy trying to talk another guy into doing a heist, I'd be like, why do I care?
Yeah.
Under the Skin, it's like, oh, it's this lady who might be an alien driving around, chatting up guys, and I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah.
But this one just like, this lady's dead husband may have manifested as a kid.
Yeah.
And they're like that's something that you can sell as something else. Like you can sell that as a thriller of like, what would you do if your dead spouse was reborn as someone else? Whereas like there's no way to advertise Under the Skin or Sexy Beast as a different type of movie than they are.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, it feels more mainstream. And I think also probably leans more mainstream just for that, for the sake of tapping into that.
Yeah. It's also like a really taboo movie. I feel like it was taboo at the time and kind of just continues to grow more so, in an interesting way without being grotesque or anything, But it is interesting. I
think it introduces a lot of concepts that if you walk them not so carefully can get pretty ooky.
Yeah.
But I think it does so in a way that is very aware of that ookiness and ties that into the themes. Yeah. So and I think it is the kind of movie that will the response to the in the moment response to it is always going to be different every time you watch it.
Yeah, I know. I'm like very curious to revisit it at some point and see how it feels on another viewing. I just wanted to talk about it with you because I for some reason that one, that was like I think I only gave it like 3 stars, but like that has really sat with me. I've been thinking about Birth for a couple of days.
He's so good at movies that stick with you.
Yeah,
because I remember even the first time I saw Under the Skin, I was like, oh yeah, that was neat, and then I had nightmares about it. And then I watched it again. I was like, oh shit, this is perfect. I just wasn't ready for it yet. So when it punched me in the gut, I like didn't stand up again.
What do you got? You got anything you want to talk about? Yeah.
I'll throw out 2 things because like this is all about the same. I now that I have a physical media player, I've been trying to like watch movies that I owned but never watched.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I just popped in my old Criterion that I never watched of Cronenberg's Naked Lunch.
We bought that Criterion recently because that's one of the Cronenbergs we've not seen yet.
Dude,
and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Watch that movie. Have you ever read Naked Lunch?
No,
I'll put it this way. It's not great. I mean, I guess it's iconic and all that, but like, it is the insane ramblings of a multi-drug addict while on those drugs. So there's a lot of stuff that's just like, it just doesn't make sense. The whole thing just kind of ends. It's like half surreal, half autobiographical. Like it's one of those things that there's literally nothing to grab onto. You read it because it is an experiment in weird prose.
Who wrote that, Dan?
William S. Burroughs.
Oh, Burroughs, right. Okay.
And so I would recommend reading it if you're curious just about how it applies to the written word.
Yeah.
But that's just because I'm a word nerd that is interesting to me. Yeah. And also when I read it when I was in my early 20s, so that was when I was like, yeah, man, drugs. And
I own that book and think I have read pieces. I seem to remember picking it up and starting to read it, and I think maybe just kind of being like, yeah, it's interesting, but I don't know what's
probably the same as if you've read it. Like there's passages that you can highlight that you go, damn, that's some rock and roll writing. Right. Whatever. But Cronenberg smartly turned it into a pretty plot-based thing.
Yeah.
It's very weird. I would say it's a great adaptation of a book that is both unadaptable and unreadable.
Yeah.
But it's weird. But it has like Cronenberg-y elements. There are giant bugs that are also typewriters that talk out of their buttholes. But it stars, RoboCop.
Oh, Peter. Peter?
It's Peter.
Peter.
It stars Big Pete.
Big Pete. Big Pete's got a Big Pete. Big Pete's so big, I call him Big Pete. Peter. Why?
Peter Weller.
Weller. God, my brain wanted to say Gallagher, and I'm like, I know who Peter Gallagher is.
Peter Gallagher.
It's not RoboCop.
But it's really cool. Like, I would actually recommend, if you go to watch Naked Lunch, I would recommend just reading the Burroughs Wikipedia page.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's a lot about his life.
Okay.
And so, like, the writer at the center of the book of Naked Lunch, we can presume is Burroughs.
Burroughs, yeah.
And so Weller's character is a riff on that, but as interpreted by Cronenberg, exploring, like probably the main thing you have to know is that William S. Burroughs murdered his wife by shooting her in the face.
Okay, I think I did know that.
Got away with it for whatever. I'm not got away with it, but whatever. I don't remember what the specifics were, but like that very much ties into the movie.
Yeah.
And so it's a really cool movie about writing, about inspiration, about, just where does creativity come from? The cheap way to say what it's like is like, oh, it's Lynchian. It's not. It's Cronenbergian. But it's Lynchian in that it is very slyly interested in the nature of creativity, which I think is at the heart of all of Lynch's works, really more than anything. Judy Davis is in it. She's great. Cool. Plays two characters. It's just a killer movie, and it has this awesome jazz soundtrack.
Ooh, love that.
Like real good, like Duke Ellington era jazz kind of stuff. But it fits because the movie itself is sort of like it's just kind of a riff that's going, but it looks beautiful. It's funny. It's weird. It's gross. And as writers, like, I'm sure there are things that you'll tap into it that I tapped into, as someone who works in words. It's highly recommend. Naked Lunch was really fantastic.
That's
great. And I always think of a classic Simpsons episode where Milhouse, Bart, and Nelson go on a road trip. They steal a car to go to the World's Fair in Chicago. They get there to find out the World's Fair was decades ago. Yeah. But at one point they stop at a movie just to do that, and they're leaving, and the movie's Naked Lunch. And one of them goes, I can think of two things wrong with the title of that movie. It always made me laugh. And now I have context for it. Although, I mean, the joke makes sense regardless.
Yeah. That's funny. I think that and Existenz are like one of the two of those is going to be the next Cronenberg thing we watch for Tori's series.
Existenz is pretty good, man.
I know. I like that movie.
It is
that
what
one
it
I've
is.
seen,
I've seen it.
It's weird. It's like to me, it's like Videodrome light. But then I don't remember. You told me this story, or somebody else told me this story. But like somebody was talking about teaching a class like recently. And they introduced their class to both Videodrome and Existenz, and current kids are like, "Oh, Existenz is the better movie because Existenz is about video games."
Yeah.
They have they
Video drums
grasp
about YouTube.
They grasp onto Existenz more than Videodrome, because Videodrome was kind of about dead technology. You know what I mean?
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Existenz, or as I like to call it. You guys want to play some video games?
Yeah.
That's the craziest
so strange. I'm very much looking forward to revisiting that, because that is, I think, might be what Tori wants to do next.
Nice.
Yeah.
I will, and I'll tell you the one other thing. I revisited Inherent Vice for the first time.
Dude, yeah. I mean, the only time I saw that, I think, was with you in the theater.
Yeah, we saw it. Yeah. It was you, me, and Jenna. We saw it together.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I mean, I think Paul Thomas Anderson is probably my favorite filmmaker. I just, everything he does is just so impeccable to me.
He's your guy.
And this was one that I was like, you know what? This is damn good, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And I watched it again, and I am there.
Did you buy a beautiful 4K of that movie?
It doesn't exist in 4K, but I did buy a Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I did get the 4K of Phantom Thread, though.
Oh, boy.
And on Monday, I'm getting the 4K of both Creed and Creed 2.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to watch that shiny man sweat and punch and baby.
Creed is going to be great. So good.
It's going to look so fucking good. When he's boxing in front of the projection of Apollo Creed boxing, I am going to come. The the Rockies are not in 4K, but I got like a pack of all the Blu-rays, and watching those in just any high def is like, like this is actually the Tremors that I got the wrong one.
Really?
It's not there's a Blu-ray and a 4K, so I returned it, and the 4K is on its way.
Hell yeah, dude, that's good.
I mean, I watched it before I returned it. It still looked awesome. But no, so I was watching Inherent Vice, and the strangest thing happened while I was watching it.
Yeah.
Midway through the movie, there's a scene that I'll just call the Ouija scene, because Doc and Shasta, they remember back to this day that they played Ouija, and like the Ouija board guides them to go just on like an adventure around town.
Okay.
And pull out the Shazam again. In this flashback, it's so beautifully shot, and the music that they use for it is Neil Young. So when I get to Neil Young, I will know what it is. The song is Journey Through the Past by Neil Young.
I don't know if I know it, at least not by name.
Absolutely gorgeous song, and it was one of those things where the content of the scene did not trigger like specific memories in me or anything. Nothing that was going on made me had me relate to it in any way. It's a very moving scene in the context of what's happening in the movie, but there was nothing personal about it. But the needle drop combined with the filmmaking, it's the hardest the most sudden I've had tears hit my face watching a movie. And it was confusing because I'm watching, I'm going, I'm not sad, I'm not happy, but just the beauty of the filmmaking is causing this involuntary cry reaction that I couldn't understand.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced that before. When I cry in a movie, it's because something resonates with me in my heart.
Yeah.
And this was just a moment of craft that was so high and so beautiful. And I don't, maybe it did resonate in a way that I just haven't investigated enough to think about yet.
Sure.
But it was like that. And the sheer power of filmmaking bowled me over. And I'm just so impressed.
That's so cool.
So cool.
I feel like I know what you mean. Like the feeling you're describing, I feel like I've had, where it's like, I don't know, you are just overwhelmed by a moment. It's not it's not the rising sort of this is a thing that I have felt before and I'm there's sometimes there's that kind of rising I'm gelling with this, I'm connecting with this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's getting to me. Oh, I'm you feel that connection kind of build. But I have had that just turn on a dime, snap a finger, just lightning. Oh, this is something is happening. What I mean?
It was staggering. It just snuck up on me. And that's a movie that almost specifically works to make the character, the main character, cryptic, because he's just on his own trip. and it was just this beautiful moment of filmmaking that just utterly wrecked me. And man, that's a movie that I think everyone should rewatch, because that's another one that is also like, gotta pause it because I'm gonna choke to death hilarious. There's so much good humor in that. I mean, Phantom Thread gets that way too. But it was just one of the wildest experiences, because I'm like, yeah, I haven't seen this in a while. Let's just put it on and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying myself. I'm laughing at Josh Brolin. I'm like into the mystery, and like I understand how to take in this movie better now, because it's not really about, what it's about.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that moment just hit, and it's just, it was just like this moment of like pure, like it was like looking at a painting where you just go, man, that's a really great piece of art.
Yeah.
But it was just this utterly staggering beauty that just punched me in the chest. And man, I just couldn't be happier that I had that experience. And
That's cool.
when I least expected it to, it was like, and it just as I'm like getting more and more burned out on life, as we all are, it was this moment that was just like, real quick, before you stress out over deadlines, remember that the reason you like movies is because they're able to do what is happening right now.
Right, yeah.
And it was, and through no effort of my own, it was able to pull all of the tears that I've repressed over the years for the sake of manliness just came pouring out. It was awesome.
I bet that would
awesome.
Be a good background movie.
Yeah.
Like, once you've seen it a couple of times, especially since it is like not really about following the plot anyway,
I mean, he dips in and out of consciousness with it.
Yeah. I just feel like what I remember about like the way that movie looks and sounds and stuff, like it probably would be a pretty decent, just like, oh, it's on, like it's just kind of
so
on my
good.
TV. Yeah.
There's the, PTA always has to have like one real good long shot. And like, in Boogie Nights, he recreates the beginning of Goodfellas where they move through the club, it's like that. The long shot in this movie is quite literally the one where Shasta, Catherine Waterston, wife, where she is back after having been missing and is really coming on strong to Doc, who's like trying to resist. And she's being very, very sexy. She's completely naked. And it's the type of scene that 15-year-old me would be like, yeah, it's the Catherine Waterston titty scene.
Yeah.
But like, that's not even the thing about the scene that's so amazing. It's like barely an issue.
Yeah.
It is this incredible monologue from her where she is acting and like laying on thick a couple layers of character, because we don't fully understand her motivations. We do know she is trying to loosen up Doc, but it's just one long take that is so in the foreground is the couch. She's in the background here, and he's on the couch. And so then the whole thing is her like moving closer and closer and blah, 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 blah. And they get closer and closer. And there's a point where she like lays across his lap into the camera, and he can't have any more. He slaps her ass and they start fucking. But like, it never cuts. The monologue continues. And the framing of this moment that's haphazard and all over the place is impeccable and crisp. And it is like, it's a scene that could very easily delve into low class.
Yeah.
And it never does. It maintains an air of high art through the entirety of it. And it's you just watch it and you're like, my God, like, how can anyone be this good at making a movie? and that's not even the scene that wrecked me. It was the fucking Ouija scene. But
right.
Man, I can't recommend. Honestly, if this is the type of movie, because it is 2.5 hours long, that yeah, put it on in the background and just kind of, let it be your background movie for a few days so you can catch all of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that you'll love it.
Oh,
a lot.
I would like to watch it. I just it has that kind of like feeling.
As a vessel to breaking over the hump of like, all right, I got to devote a night to it.
Yeah.
That's one way. I mean, that's how I'm going to be watching it for the next couple weeks for sure.
Yeah.
It's just on the background. It's just. And so I also bought The Master and Phantom Thread.
Nice.
Which I've seen each of those twice ever, and it's been a while. And so it's time to revisit those. I actually think that The Master might be fun to revisit in a world that is increasingly showing how easy it is to fall under the sway of someone who is. I don't even want to give a certain someone credit for being charismatic, but we'll call it that.
Yeah.
We'll call. But I mean, I guess I have to give him credit. But like how easy it is for people to be blind due to perceived charisma.
Yeah.
And so
that probably would be an interesting movie to watch now. Yeah.
It's also interesting to watch all these movies because, like, I maintain that I think Joaquin Phoenix is like so powerfully compelling, and I know that like I really liked The Joker, but that's not the movie that he gets Best Actor for, but he did.
Right. Yes.
You know, and so it's the same way. It's like when Scorsese won Best Picture or was it Best Picture for Departed, where you go, that's not your Best Picture, but like, dude's got to get one. Dude's got to get one, and this is pretty good. And like, so whatever your feelings about the Joker, he does do a good job in it. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, if that's the one that gets JP his Oscar, I'm into it. But you watch something like Inherent Vice or The Master, or you were never really here, or things like that, and you go, man, this guy's just keyed the fuck in. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. You want to wrap this one up?
Yeah, man. Let's wrap it up. Last week.
Yeah.
I brought this on the show.
Yeah. Have you read it?
I finished it yesterday. This is some fine stuff. I need to read me some more Elmore Leonard.
Hell yeah.
So, and it's all just short stories, like 3:10 to Yuma. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I have not.
The story, like literally the only similarity is the character names and the fact that they got to catch a train, but it's like a 5-page story. But yeah, fans of our show will love this. So look into some Elmore Leonard. I was really into it. That's all.
I think the announcement is official. So Cinema76.com is becoming part of MovieJohn.com. So yeah, that's where you can find Dan and I, as well as other places. But MovieJohn.com is where you will find a lot of our writing in the future.
Yes, so R.I.P. Cinema 76. Thank you so much for the good times, although it's still essentially the same thing. Yes. All of that material will be migrated over. So all of our work you can still find, but it'll be found at MovieJohn.com, which opens up a new horizon for a lot of fun things. We're going to be connecting with a lot of other creatives, doing a lot of other creative things. And it's good. Did you get your picture of your face yet?
Not yet.
Oh, God, that was the best thing ever when I got mine.
I bet.
But yeah, check out MovieJohn.com. You should also check out Findy.com. Check out Dumpster Fires for You on Instagram if you want to buy some cool candles. And it's all upcycled stuff, such as this candle that I'm currently rocking that I made myself out of a Tostitos jar. But Jen is the one buying the candles. That was just a gift for me. And check out Hot Property, my goofy show, our latest episode. You should check it out. Well, we're going to try over the course of our show to build an impression of Matt Damon.
Okay.
And the first attempts were this week. Okay. It turned out to mostly just be me doing Stallone. But hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But but also, look for future episodes. Garrett's going to be on one. We haven't talked about it, but you're going to be on one.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Yeah. it's fun.
That. Yeah. You know what? I think soon I'm going to be on an episode of Too Fast, Too Forever. Check out that podcast because I'm looking forward to that.
That's a good show.
And you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Philadelphia. That's with an F. You can find our show everywhere at I Like 2 Movie. It's numeric 2. That's it for me.
At Dan Scully on all the things.
My name is Garrett Smith, and I like to movie.
Transitions. My name is Dan Scully, and I like to movie.
We all know that you like to movie because we like to movie. All right.